Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hope you guys are doing well. First and foremost, I apologise if I sound a bit coldy, a bit bunged up. Listen man, hay fever has been kicking me in the balls today, so apologies if I sound like shit. It is what it is. But listen, I wasn't even going to make a video today, but over the last few days, I've been seeing these rumours about Nigel Benn making a comeback at 55 years old. And basically I just wanted to share my 2 cents on this story. Now of course, Nigel Benn, a British boxing legend, a 2-weight world champion. He was involved in legendary bouts against the likes of Chris Eubank, Steve Collins, Michael Watson and Gerald McClellan. The guy had a storied career, and ultimately he is one of the most beloved figures in British boxing. Basically, the man's legacy is sealed as one of the all-time favourites amongst British boxing fans, but news has emerged over the past week or so that he could be making a return at 55 years old, and today I've seen developments in those stories. Now, apparently this guy is going to return to the ring on the 23rd of November, and apparently the fight will be in Birmingham. Now bear in mind, like I said, Nigel Benn is 55 years old and he had his last professional fight in November 1996 against Steve Collins. In fact, Nigel Benn actually lost his last 3 professional fights, and against Steve Collins it was obvious to see Nigel Benn was past his best. 23 years later, he appears to be making his ring return, and I just really wanted to share my 2 cents on that story. The name that's being mentioned as Nigel Benn's comeback opponent is 40-year-old Sakio Bika, and I was surprised when I heard that name mentioned because I felt it would be somebody who would be a bit older, a bit closer to Nigel Benn's age, somebody who hasn't been active for quite some time. But the name that's going around is Sakio Bika, and if that is true, then I really do believe this is a dangerous fight for Nigel Benn. First and foremost, Sakio Bika, he's no spring chicken himself, he's 40 years old and he is past his best, but the guy has been training. You know, he is still an official professional boxer. I know he's not fought since 2017, but I believe he's been trying to get fights. So he's been active in the gym, he's been sparring, and he's been training. So the guy is essentially still a pro boxer, whereas Nigel Benn, yes, he's in good shape, but the guy's 55 years old, and, you know, he's not been an active boxer since 1996. So, listen man, Sakio Bika is an extremely dangerous fight for a 55-year-old man who's been retired for 23 years to take. I can only see this going one way, and I believe it will end in tears. Prime for prime, Nigel Benn was a much better fighter than Sakio Bika, but, you know, that's not the discussion here. Like I said, he's a 55-year-old man, and he should not be fighting any active professional boxer, as far as I'm concerned. You know, he should sit down and, you know, just enjoy the fruits of his labour and look at the young generation coming up. That's what Nigel Benn should be doing, but it doesn't appear that that is the case. If I was around Nigel Benn and if I was close to him, I would advise him not to take this fight, obviously, you know, given the increased risk that he would face going into the ring at 55 years old. But, having said all of that, ultimately, I'm a boxing fan, and I've got morbid curiosity, so if this fight was made, would I watch it? Listen man, I cannot sit here and lie to you and say no. The morbid curiosity would get the best out of me, and I would watch it just to see what would happen when a 55-year-old former great fought a 40-year-old but still active pro boxer. I would still watch it. I personally believe it will end in tears. I really do. And I don't think it's a good idea from Nigel Benn's perspective. But despite saying all of that, I would still watch it. I guess that makes me a hypocrite, right? But, I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest with you guys. I can sit here and say it's wrong, etc., etc., but I would still watch it. And that's the bottom line. People will watch this fight out of curiosity, out of nostalgia. People from back in the day who used to watch Nigel Benn, they're going to watch this fight to see glimpses of the old warrior. So listen, man, people are going to be watching this fight for different reasons, but it will sell. It will do well. People will be interested. Trust me on that. So listen, ultimately, from an objective and, unemotional point of view, ultimately, if Nigel Benn can pass a genuine medical and prove he is sound of mind, then I've got no real problem with him fighting. Ultimately, I believe, as human beings, as men, we are in charge of our own destiny. And if Nigel Benn wants to fight, and he is capable, and he can pass medicals, he can prove he is sane, then who am I to sit here and say, well, Nigel, you shouldn't fight? Who am I to say that? Who am I to take money out of somebody else's mouth, So listen, I've got my concerns, I guess. I've got my doubts. I am sceptical of how Nigel Benn would do. And even if this fight happens, but if it does, am I going to be outraged? Am I going to be shocked? Not really. And would I watch it? Absolutely. If I said no, I would be lying to you. I'm just trying to be honest. And even for people who say this is a bad idea, this is terrible for the sport, a lot of these same guys will watch this fight, trust me on that. Whether they stream it or buy it, whatever, they will watch this fight and talk about it. So, it is what it is. I mean, I would rather it didn't happen, but if it does, I will watch it. I will. But I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts. How do you feel about this situation? If it does happen, will you watch it? I'm intrigued. Share your thoughts below. Peace.